Hey there Facebook, it is Vanessa here again, your motivational speaker, trainer and head coach from Live, Love, Give. And today's message is all about conflict and the fact that your conflict is either a door or a doorway, and it's dependent on our mindset and our meanings around it. And this message was ultimately inspired from just this past week, celebrating my beautiful granny's 92nd birthday. And on her birthday, I asked the question that I always ask everybody when it's their birthday, and it's, what has been your greatest lesson throughout your life so far? And, she's spent a lot of time on this planet at 92 years old, and I was kind of surprised by her response to it because it differed a lot from my own. And but I always want to learn. I always want to figure out why somebody has the perspective that they do. And so anyway, her answer to that question was that we should avoid conflict. We should do whatever is in our power to avoid conflict. Conflict is never good. And that's the lesson that she ultimately said that she had learnt. And that was her lesson. It was just avoid conflict at all costs. Always find a way to avoid it. Never interact with it. And conflict is always bad. And it got me thinking, because I've been studying relationships and love and connection and just, human behavior for so long now that it kind of was like, whoa, okay, I like hearing this. It's like this different perspective. And obviously somebody who's walked the planet for 92 years has got some wisdom going on and some experience. And so I stayed curious and asked her a bunch of questions as to, what is conflict to you, and why, how have you learnt that lesson? And it was funny because we were having the conversation about understanding people based on where they've come from, understanding their past. And, my granny fled from Nazi Germany in World War II, and at the age of 12 had to relocate to England, and with a whole new family, language, dynamic, way of being, and never knew what happened to her parents. And, we can only assume that they were captured and put in a Nazi concentration camp and, perished. And, when we can understand, it's hard to put ourselves in another person's experience, but when we can be curious about finding out where they have come from and, hearing her talk into what it would have been like for her at such a young age and her relationship with conflict, like where that came from. And ultimately, why it's so different to mine, because my belief around conflict is that conflict is ultimately the doorway to deeper understanding and love. And that's what I really believe. I don't think that conflict is a bad thing. I actually welcome conflict because I believe that we are all human beings, and sometimes the way in which we need to express ourselves and get a better understanding of others is to communicate about it. And when I quizzed my granny on, what her thoughts around conflict were, it was very, it was kind of the extreme, it was kind of like that war, that that real inequality, that real, that bad version of conflict where we're actually not trying to understand one another. We're trying to enforce our rules on another. And I believe that when you have that belief around conflict, it can serve you in many ways, but it can also hinder you in many ways. And it is something that I personally, my experience with conflict has always been that whenever I've gotten into a conflict with somebody, I've always learnt something more about myself, and I've always learnt something more about that other person, and ultimately it's led to a better connection. And that's why I want to, I want to value her perspective on conflict, and I so understand where that comes from. And the beauty of it, it's driven her to, give a lot of her time, energy, finances to bettering equality and to, worthy charities and people doing extraordinary things to increase the peace on earth. So there's such beauty in that. But when we talk about our, everyday relationships, the people in our lives that we want to build strong relationships with, I really believe that we need to have a mindset around conflict that it is a doorway, not a door. It's not a shut the door, avoid it at all costs because it's only going to be detrimental. It actually can be a doorway if we come at it with the right mindset as to expressing ourselves and being open to hearing another perspective with an openness to change based on learning that new information. And understanding others. We can't assume to know another person's experience and what matters to them. We need to be curious, and sometimes conflict ends up being that doorway to the higher levels of understanding and ultimately building a deeper connection and accessing love. So that's kind of my perspective around it that I wanted to bring to you guys today. Make sure that you're dropping any questions, comments below. Really want to hear from you guys, and let me check in as always. I love it. Stephen and Nick and Graham, lovely to have you guys here. And Ashley and Jeremy's in the house. I love it. And Roy and Jim, awesome guys. And Robert, yes, and Andrew. And Matthew and Azif, thank you. And hi Vanessa from Nikki and Graham. Awesome. Thank you for joining me, guys. Love having you here. And Michael and Ismail and Matt and Moman and Ellison. I'm glad that this is resonating with you, Azif. Thanks for being here. And Lewis, awesome. And Hyungle, nice to have you. And Ed and Chris. And Michelle and Josue and MK and Nguyen, sorry, I keep saying, and I'm not sure if that's your last name. Somebody needs to educate me in terms of, when I see first names, are they the last name or the first name? Is there some sort of different cultures that put their last name first? Let me know, guys, if you have that answer, because it's been on my mind for a while. From Ho Chi Minh, love it. I've been there. I was there last year for a couple of weeks. Crazy place. It was great experience. I love Vietnam, particularly I love up north in Hoi An. Oh, beautiful. And Jeremy, do you feel if we try to avoid conflict that maybe we're avoiding some truth within ourselves? Yes, and I know that you know that answer, Jeremy. It's so awesome and such a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. That definitely, it's the same as what we've been talking into about judgments of others. When we're judging others, we are ultimately judging something within ourselves. And yeah, I do believe that when we avoid conflict, we are also avoiding something within ourselves, because ultimately the way that we show up in the world is exactly how we are showing up internally. So if we are avoiding conflict in the external world, ultimately I really believe that a lot of it comes down to our lack of belief in ourselves. We're avoiding building that relationship with ourselves. We're avoiding some truth within ourselves, and that makes us not believe in ourselves to be able to handle the reactions and responses from others. So every action that we take is dependent on the relationship with self, and many times, oftentimes, you will find that if you even question yourself on this, when you are avoiding some sort of conflict, when you are avoiding that communication, what is it that you've been avoiding in yourself? What is it, and there is so much gold to be had when we get that introspective work done and we can clarify, what am I avoiding here? And often it comes down to that lack of belief in our ability to handle what's being thrown at us. So maybe we're avoiding some truth, which ultimately, whenever we are avoiding a truth within ourselves, it diminishes our belief in ourselves, and that's what impacts our ability to show up in a meaningful way and be able to handle the conflict and shift that meaning to conflict being something that is the doorway to higher levels of understanding and love, instead of a door close off because you're too scared, because you don't know the response that you're going to get in the external world, which ultimately you don't believe you'll be able to handle because you've been avoiding something within yourself, which is diminishing your self-belief. So awesome, Jeremy. I hope that made sense at my rambling there. Molly, nice to have you. And Mark and Nancy and Adam Graham. Yes, g'day to you as well, Mark. And Judy, nice to have you. And Bobby and Luisa, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. And Robbie, awesome to have you. And Shane and Bobby's back. And yes, Nguyen is sure the name. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. And Shah and Kane and Carolina and Komang and Caden and Frank. I love having you guys here. Thank you so much for being here. Glad that resonated, Jeremy. And Matt, using the method of killing them with kindness can be a good thing, I believe. What's your thought? I absolutely love that, Matt. I'm a big believer in that, because I know that my belief is that when you hit fear with fear, you only serve to magnify it. So it's only going to get worse. And the only antidote to fear is ultimately going to be from a place of love. So yeah, killing them with kindness, but you've got to make sure that you are operating from a place of killing them with kindness from a place of love. So it's got to be authentic. It's got to be true. You know, you've got to get yourself in a great state of mind and coming from a loving centered place to get outside of your own fears and meet them with compassion and kindness. But ultimately, if you're just trying to be nice because, you know, it's coming from kind of a fear-driven place, like, oh, you just want to like avoid this conflict and just kind of like, you know, walk on eggshells and not like want to ruffle any feathers, then ultimately that never works, because we as human beings, even if we can't articulate it, we can pick up on authenticity and inauthentic people. So when you're coming from that fearful place of just trying to avoid conflict and kill them with kindness to avoid it, then you're not going to get a great response, because ultimately it's still fear fighting fear. But if you have done the work and you've gotten yourself to a loving, centered, strong place where you can get outside of your own fears and meet them with compassion and kindness and ultimately guide them with love, people pick up on that, and you will be a leader of love, as I like to say. So I hope that was helpful, Matt. I really appreciate you asking your question here and sharing your comments, and I love it. And Lauro, nice to have you, and Graham and Shane's back. Awesome. Oh, awesome, Matt. You've written something to me here. I've had people have beef with me, but I continue to shake their hand whether they like it or not, and they've had no choice but to get over their problems, such as a lion won't kill if you show nothing to chase. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, so what I'm hearing from you in that comment, Matt, is that you are not letting their fears and insecurities shake you from your truth. And if you can stay strong in that truth, which ultimately do by building a great relationship with yourself and seeing other people's fears for their own fears and not identifying with it or making it mean anything about you, then ultimately you're going to be in that place and stay consistent with love and stay consistent in your truth. And that's how they will come around. So I love your comments there. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I love how you've expressed it as, you know, the lion won't kill if you show nothing to chase. I absolutely love that. And we only show something to chase when we're being triggered by our own fears, and we've got some work to do there. So I love that, Matt. Thank you for sharing your experience there. And Manolo, nice to have you. Thanks for being here, Shane. And Graham, people tend to look to be happy. Other people just get in the way. I don't think they mean to cause conflict half the time. Yeah, and often they don't, because often our conflict is just us being triggered by the fears of other people who are ultimately just stuck in their own fears. They're not purposely trying to create conflict with you. They're just stuck in their own fears. And I hope that's not too noisy. Something's going on outside there. But yeah, so I love that, Graham. Thanks for sharing your comments there. And Andy and Jamie and Jen, awesome to have you guys here. And yeah, so that really is my message. Make sure you're dropping any last comments or feedback or experiences here. I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I really want this message. My purpose for today's message is to help you to bring awareness around what's your perspective and meaning around conflict, and ultimately shift it and change it to something that's really empowering. It's about shifting your meaning around conflict from being a door that gets in the way and closes off from love and connection to what I believe is a healthier healthier version of conflict, which is a doorway. You like creating a meaning of conflict as being a doorway to gain better understanding, not only of yourself and how it triggers you and shines light on the work that you need to do as an individual, but also it's a doorway to building a deeper understanding of another human being. And if we want to create extraordinary quality of relationships with anyone, we've got to be open to conflict. You know, whenever I hear people who've never have any conflict in their life, in their relationship, I actually don't think that's a good thing. That's my opinion. I think that there are healthy ways of having conflict, and we don't need to beat down and be abusive to one another. But conflict, in my experience, is actually a healthy thing. And, you know, we are individual beings, and we do need to be able to express and be open to hearing and understanding another person in order to create that doorway to deeper levels of understanding and love. And so many of us, we have this fear around conflict in our relationships. We think if we fight, if we have a conflict, it's a bad thing. We should break up. We shouldn't be together. And I've been there in the past as well. That's a belief that I used to have. And what I've learned is that that's not the case at all. And it is in the communication and the willingness to upset another person if it means stepping into your truth in a loving centered way, you know, in being able to express all of who you are without the fear of jeopardizing the connection, which ultimately just keeps you in an inauthentic place and unable to go to the depths of understanding and love that you are capable of. Then, you know, you've really got to make that shift. You've got to make that conflict being a doorway to deeper levels of understanding and love. So guys, that is it from me today. Thank you so much for joining me. Mike and Marco and Ruby and Laval, you've caught me at the end. I'm about to sign up, but I really, really hope that you guys catch the recording and gain some value from today's message. And I'd love to hear from you. What's been your experience with conflict in your relationships, you know? And have you made some shifts that have really helped and served you? Or are you currently going through that? And if you'd like any individual support, guidance, help, you know I have those 15-minute power sessions. They're all free, just for me to help and connect with you with where you're at, help you break through your current challenge. And if this is something that you're struggling with, make sure that you definitely book in a 15-minute power session with me. I'd love to meet you, love to connect with you, and see how I could help and support and guide you to higher levels of self-awareness and quality of relationships in your life for sure. And sending you guys so much love. Thanks for joining me, Mika, and from the Philippines. I love it. And Saprit and Mick, guys, I love that you're here. Unfortunately, I'm just about to sign off, so I really hope you catch that recording, gain some value. And that's it from me today, guys. I'm sending you all of my love, light, blessings, gratitude, energy, enthusiasm, everything brilliant coming at you from wherever you are in the world today, day or night. I appreciate each and every one of you so, so much. I love that you take your time to engage with me, to watch this content, and I really, really hope that you are gaining some sort of value from it, and it's helping you shift some perspectives and take some empowerment into your life so that you can ultimately reach your limitless potential. So guys, that's it, and I will sign off right now, and much, much love to you, and I will see you guys tomorrow.